Alrighty, welcome into Nate's NFL Power Podcast, your place for commercial-free power rankings, game slate, top 5 games of the week, and picks. Of course, I am your host, Nate, aka Always Triggered, and what a crazy week 2 we had. We're definitely going to get into it here in just a sec. A lot of unexpected things went down in the last 168 hours or so since our last podcast. As always, guys, make sure to drop a like on the video to help our very young and up-and-coming channel. And don't forget to subscribe, so that way you are always aware when our new content drops for the pod. Also want to thank you guys. The interactions have been picking up. I love seeing the comments and responding to them, so let's definitely keep that rolling. And with that being said, let's roll right into Season 3, Episode 3. As always, let's start off with our power rankings. And there they are for you here on the screen. A lot of movement this week with the power rankings. As I said earlier, a lot has happened. We've seen tons of injuries across the league. Some teams are really decimated and gutted as a result. We saw some truly unbelievable things in week 2 and plenty of upsets. I'm going to break it down for you as always, and we'll stick right to the format. Let's go ahead and look at the right column first, and we'll start right at the bottom. Team 32, the Carolina Panthers. No surprise in their matchup this week as the Panthers lost 3-26 to the Chargers. They went 1 for 12 on third downs. Bryce Young throwing for only 84 yards and an interception. The reason I start off with this team is simply because of Coach Dave Canales deciding to make the quarterback change, as Andy Dalton will be the week 3 starter for their matchup versus the 1-1 Raiders. Let's talk about teams 31 and 28 here as they played each other, the New York Giants and the Washington Commanders. And the game definitely showed me just how much both these teams really belong in the right column, as the Commanders' Swiss cheese defense allowed Daniel Jones to hook up with Malik Neighbors on 10 completed balls for 127 yards, including Malik's first touchdown in the NFL. Too bad for him, he dropped a huge pass in the fourth quarter that could have changed the outcome of the game, and too bad for Giants fans, as the Giants coach came into the game with a kicker that he knew had a hamstring injury and had absolutely no backup plan for that. The New York Giants became the first team and only team ever to score 3 touchdowns, give up no touchdowns at all, and lose the game to 7 Austin Seibert field goals. I'll briefly mention that the 30th ranked Broncos rookie quarterback Bo Nix had a rough outing against Pittsburgh, throwing 0 touchdowns and 2 picks, 1 in the red zone, while the number 29th ranked team's quarterback Will Levis has given me a new term or verb to use called levising. He has now, in back-to-back weeks, made by far the most comical errors, costing his team significant chances to win each of their games. And how did the Titans head coach Brian Callahan describe his quarterback decision to huck the ball backwards while falling down? He simply said, quote, "It was dumb," end quote. And now levising has become a phrase for me. All right, let's move to Team 27, the Raiders, who are kicking off this week's underdog party because this seemed like that was the theme of week 2. The Raiders jumped up here 3 spots as they went all the way out east to Baltimore and beat the Ravens. Gardner Minshew threw 30 for 38 on the Ravens defense. That really was the surprising factor for me. He threw for 276 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick. The Raiders rushed for just 27 yards. Yeah. They beat the Ravens by running on the Ravens only 27 yards. Definitely concerns for the Ravens, but we'll talk more about them later. At rank 26, we have the Jaguars, who are just finding any possible way to lose games. They looked absolutely awful in their game. Trevor Lawrence has now lost 7 games in a row, which now brings his grand total to 20-32 in his very young and very rich career. Gotta imagine, since teams don't typically fire their $50 million quarterbacks, that Dougie P is going to be on the hot seat, if not already. At 25, we have the Bears, who allowed the Houston Texans defense to harass and beat up their rookie quarterback, Caleb Williams. As you can see, the Bears have fallen 10 spots in my rankings. Their injuries at wide receiver, coupled with their offensive line issues, have really hurt their offensive output. I believe they can bounce back, but they'll have to show improvement to get back into the middle column. At 24, the Patriots, who lost but hung in well versus the Seattle Seahawks. They have, in my opinion, looked a lot better than what I thought coming into the year. I really thought New England might struggle to even win 5 games, but it's looking like they're going to be competitive, and their game this week is early, and we'll talk about that also later. They might even have a chance to win it. At 23, we have the Colts, who dropped to 0-2 after a 3-interception day for Anthony Richardson in Lambeau. Losing to backup Malik Willis was another underdog special that I had not predicted this week, especially after an amazing game 1 from Anthony Richardson. I mean, he looked outstanding with probably the best throw of the entire year, the best throw I might have ever seen in the NFL in week 1, and what an absolute opposite performance they had in Lambeau this last weekend. And rounding out the right column, dropping all the way down to 22, is the LA Rams. And if you thought their 10-41 loss to a division rival. Arizona was bad. Let me tell you, they have lost practically their entire offensive line, and Cooper Kupp is now expected to be out weeks as well. So they already had Puka Nacua on IR, and they've lost both wide receiver 1 and 2. I do not, but many people had the Rams winning this division, their NFC West this year. I thought they could be a playoff team, that's for sure, but that's even looking bleak with the injuries they've got piled up. So we'll see how they, if they can, bounce back. But for now, they seem to have done the unthinkable. They went from all the way left column, where I had them ranked 7 last week, all the way down, skipping over the middle column to 22, down 15 spots. That's just goes to show you what a crazy week 2 we had. All right, let's go ahead and jump over to the middle column here. We'll start with the Falcons at 21, who, thanks to the Eagles' blunder and Saquon Barkley dropping the ball, they straight up stole Monday Night Football. Kirk Cousins marched the Falcons down the length of the field with about 3 or 4 solid throws. And the Eagles' defense just let them do it. Their running game looked great. Bijan Robinson looked well, and so did their new additions on the defensive side of the ball, Matthew Judon and Jesse Bates. The defense did leave a lot to be desired, as I see them still as a team that's kind of trying to figure themselves out, and we'll see how they kind of progress here as the year goes on. And speaking of that game, let's move over to the Eagles, who dropped 4 spots to 15th. That drop by Saquon Barkley on 3rd and short inside of 2 minutes is definitely on everyone's mind. It's all over the sports news networks. However, I want to remind everyone, last week, I called the Eagles secondary Swiss cheese light, and I really thought that they got gashed by the Packers in week 1 in Brazil. And their ability to hold teams out of the red zone or the end zone, both in that game and on Monday night, makes them look better than I think they actually are. But they also have a really hard time generating pressure, and that's concerning as well. I also thought Saquon saved the Eagles in week 1. If you go back to my podcast from last week, you'll see that I said that. So with his outstanding performance in that week, him kind of costing them this week, I think the Eagles are really just what they are. They're just not a very good team. Definitely not as good as what I had even predicted. Saquon took that on the chin, blaming himself. I commend him for that. I also think Eagles fans should lighten up. I think more of the blame should be placed on Sirianni for making that call, or Kellen Moore, or the whole collection of the coaches. The Eagles seem to have kind of gone into disarray after their 10-1 start last year. And that disarray, to me, in my opinion, has not changed at all. So let's go ahead and stay in this division and talk about the 12th ranked Dallas Cowboys. They got absolutely boat raced at home by yet another Shanahan tree disciple or scheme on the offensive side. They lost 44-19 to the Saints. I actually have come to expect such outings from the Cowboys from time to time. They're described as F games by a lot of people, and rightfully so, as they seem to come out with not the slightest ability to compete. Almost if they're stunned or they just take the week off. The Cowboys are sitting at 12 and are still, in my opinion, better than the Eagles, as the Eagles have so many flaws. But both these teams are currently not constructed or performing in a manner that, to me, makes them any bit viable to make a championship run. Let's go ahead and talk about the Dolphins that fell 11 spots all the way down to 20 after their brutal loss to rival Buffalo. Tua, unfortunately, threw 3 interceptions Thursday night before yet again suffering a horrific-looking concussion on the national stage. Yikes. To touch on this topic is kind of sensitive, and ultimately, what I do want to say is it's Tua's decision to decide whether or not he'll play once, as I imagine, he will inevitably be cleared. He did get placed on IR this week. That means he'll be out at least 4 games. I do want to give my take on it. I see it both ways. If I was Tua's brother, seeing how completely normal or soft, and I'm trying to say this in the best way possible, but might not have the best words to describe it, but that collision with DeMar Hamlin, it was on like his right shoulder, his bicep. If I was his brother, I'd say, hey, Tua, I don't want to see you go out there and go down and get in that fencing pose again. Now, on the other side, I know it's not the same thing, but I can kind of relate to Tua in this sense. As some of you guys may know, I am a motorcyclist, and one day a vehicle jumped across my lane when I was coming home, and it caused me to actually lay my motorcycle down. I barrel rolled across the road, and I was out for about a minute before I came to, and that driver fled the scene. So it was a hit and run. After coming to, I had both my arms missing tons of skin. I had gravel in my arms. It was horrific. I was lucky that an ambulance showed up very quickly. I say this to tell you guys this. I was in that ambulance. I was bleeding from both my arms. I was hocked up on adrenaline so much that I had no idea that I had torn the UCL in my right thumb, and I would eventually need surgery on that. In the moment that had happened, in the back of that ambulance, deputy who was on the scene asked me if I was going to ride my motorcycle again, and you know what I told him? I said yes. As soon as I get out of the hospital, I'm going to ride again. Now, it's definitely not the same thing. I don't ride my motorcycle for a job. I don't have the ability to give my family generational wealth by riding my motorcycle. But this is how I can relate. As someone who does something they love, for me, riding, and for Tua, playing football. And it's something we've both done through our adolescence and into our adult years. And I've been told by my uncles, my family, my aunts, they've yelled at me and said, "Why do you ride a motorcycle? It's crazy," and all that. And I respect them and I get where they're coming from. But I still ride today. I've been riding for 22 years and I'm not going to stop. So I can see why Tua may, and as he did say, he has no plans of retiring, he feels that way because it's what he does. And so anybody who's passionate, anyone who, especially if you're in your late 20s, mid to late 20s, you may understand the risk. And I hope the doctors tell him the risk. I hope his family tells him what they really feel so that he can make his decision. But at the end of the day, it is his decision. I will tell you, as just a fan of the NFL, I am a little bit scared for him because I'm telling you, the NFL doesn't, I'm sure no fan wants to see him go down like that again. And the thing is, nobody really knows what damage is really going to happen to his brain by having so many of them. The only way to tell is to biopsy the brain, and you can't do that until someone's dead. So, I feel for him. I don't want him to get hurt. I want him to protect himself, and that's about all I can say on that. I just hope, in all honesty, in an ideal world, I hope he never gets concussed again. But can we honestly say that we can guarantee that? And to be honest, with that hit that I saw, that's what scares me the most. It wasn't a brutal hit, and I just don't know, and that's all I can say. I hope he gets better. I really do. And I hope things get better for him. All right, let's go ahead and move along here to Cleveland at 19, moving up 3 spots, rebounding back from their week 1 loss to the Cowboys by beating the Jaguars. The Cardinals had a significant jump, going up 7 spots here. They're at 18 after laying the wood to the Rams at home. Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr. looked amazing in that game. They linked up 4 times for 130 yards, 2 touchdowns, and almost all of that came in the first quarter. Here's an interesting one. The Packers and Jets, they both moved down this week, 3 spots, even after winning. Call me a skeptic, but I just don't believe in Malik Willis. Definitely didn't see them winning. And with the Jets, they lost another D lineman this last week. And their defense doesn't nearly look as strong as they looked a year ago. Their inability to get pressure also is something that's really impacting them. 2 teams to really highlight here are the Seahawks and Vikings at 14 and 13 respectively. I like the Hawks defense, and they have really good defensive pieces, especially in their secondary. Coming from Seattle to Boston is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. DK Metcalf had himself a game. I really think Seattle knows their identity, and it's getting to the pass from their base of being a run-first team and playing good defense. The Vikings' massive 11-spot jump up my rankings is a result of 2 main things. 1, they are 2-0. And 2, they really took it to the San Francisco 49ers. They were able to hold the Niners to 2 for 10 on 3rd down. They turned over Brock Purdy twice, once with an interception and once on a fumble. Justin Jefferson did suffer an injury to his quad, but he says he'll be fine. We'll definitely have to monitor that to see how it progresses or it heals. And at the top of the middle column, we have Jim Harbaugh's LA Chargers at 11. The Chargers have taken the identity of their head coach. They are tough. They run the ball. They play defense. I'm a big proponent that coaching matters and makes a difference in the NFL. When I look at how the Chargers play, only committing 3 penalties for 15 yards last week, going 9 for 16 on 3rd down, executing a game plan. Yes, it was against the Panthers, but well-coached teams beat bad teams 26-3. They don't make mistakes at the end of games. They don't fail to show up at home. Yes, I'm looking at you, Eagles and Cowboys. Kudos for the Chargers for making a 5-position jump up to 11. And now let's go ahead and get into my top 10 teams heading into week 3. At number 10, moving up 9 spots, are your AFC North leading Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll be honest, guys, up until this week, I have been underrating Pittsburgh Steelers, so apologies are definitely in order. Their defense and, of course, TJ Watt are phenomenal. They are well coached, and they are, in my opinion, starting and will continue to start the better quarterback in Justin Fields. At number 9, I have the New Orleans Saints. Not surprising, they jumped up 11 spots as they went into last week's number 6 ranked team, the Dallas Cowboys, and completely obliterated them. They scored on all of their first 15 offensive possessions this season, and they lead the league in scoring because of it. They are undefeated. All right, time to get some controversy here, guys. At number 8 and number 7, I have the Ravens and Bengals, both at 0-2. Yes, I can already hear the Steelers fans rushing to the comment section, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are 2-0, and they're better, and they're leading the division. Heck, even the Browns are 1-1, and they're ahead of both these teams. Look, guys, I know these teams haven't won a game yet, but let me remind you that my power rankings are not standing. Both these teams have played the Chiefs in Kansas City, and both teams had opportunities to win their games when they played Kansas City. With the Bengals, they've almost always seemed to start off slow, and they need to get their wideouts healthy and paid. Does the Ravens' loss to the Raiders concern me? Yes. Do their defensive struggles concern me? Yes. Versus the Raiders, they had 11 penalties for 109 yards. They lost time of possession, and they went 3 for 11 on third downs. I just think that John Harbaugh and two-time MVP Lamar Jackson will get things right, and I think the Bengals will get right as well. So that is why they're ranked 8 and 7. At number 6, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucks went into Detroit and got the dub. So they are definitely going to move up in my rankings. And as they did, they moved up 4 spots. So why are they not higher, perhaps? Definitely not higher than maybe Lions, who, as you can see, are my top ranked NFC team here on the board. The Bucks were outgained 216 yards to the Lions 463, with Detroit doubling them both in rushing yardage and passing yardage. Detroit also won time of possession. When it comes down to it, I saw Goff's 2 interceptions, the coaching errors, and the penalties really is what made the difference in the game. I give the Bucks credit for their role in causing those things, and it's reflected in them moving up from 10 to 6. I just can't put them any higher. Now, at number 5, I have the Buffalo Bills. I should have known better than to pick against Josh Allen in prime time versus the Dolphins, but he didn't really have to do very much on Thursday. And the Bills really relied on what seems to be their new identity for 2024. And that identity is one that I find a lot scarier than the previous iterations of the Bills. They run the ball and muscle up on defense. And Josh Allen completing 13 of 19 for 1 touchdown to Cook, while Cook also scores twice on the ground, should scare AFC contenders. I'm sure any of the other AFC contenders would rather have Josh Allen running around, throwing the ball all over the place, potentially getting hurt or throwing interceptions or fumbles. And that's where they have in the past taken advantage of the Bills. But the Bills having this identity in 2024 of run, play hard defense, and not turn the ball over is scary and surprising at the same time, and thus why the Buffalo Bills moved up 3 spots. Moving on to number 4, we have the 49ers. Yes, their loss to Minnesota definitely hurts. They let Justin Jefferson get loose for a 97-yard touchdown. They paid for it dearly. Debo's hurt. CMC is on IR. But I trust in Shanahan and the wide-open NFC, so I still have reason to believe in them. I will have to admit, Purdy didn't play the best game, but he doesn't look bad this year. He very much seems more comfortable to me when running the offense, and having Jordan Mason be as productive as he has, with averaging more than 5 yards a carry, makes the Niners still a very dangerous team. Just not the second most dangerous team in the league like they were last week. So I had to move them down. I moved them to 4. At number 3, I have the Detroit Lions. As mentioned when we spoke about the Bucks, the Lions somewhat let their game get away from them. Dan Campbell blamed himself, and I'm sure their players will follow suit and look inwardly and blame themselves. The Amon-Ra St. Brown and Anzalone injuries concern me. St. Brown is said to be good. It is soft tissue, so that always makes me cautious. Anzalone is in concussion protocol. That does hurt the defense as he's their primary or leading tackler. I expect great things from the Lions this year, so they just need to get healthy and kind of back on the horse, and that's why they didn't move. Number 2. Let's get right to this one. This is one of my favorites here. At number 2, I have the Houston Texans. This is the Texas team that really did go all in, not the Dallas Cowboys. I love their additions. You got Mixon and Stephon Diggs on the offensive side of the ball already contributing, as well as the addition of Danielle Hunter on defense. Both Hunter and second-year defensive end Will Anderson Jr. each recorded 1.5 sacks and 2 tackles for loss. CJ Stroud and the young Texans are well coached, and they do so many things well. Honorable mention goes to Nico Collins. The 6'4", 222-pound wideout recorded 8 catches on 10 targets for 135 yards and a touchdown. Very, very nice outing. And with no surprise, guys, the number 1 team in my ranking here going into week 3 is the Kansas City Chiefs. And until someone beats them down like nobody's business, it's going to be very hard for me to see them falling from my rank. Now, I will admit the Isaiah Pacheco injury, him missing what's said to be about 6 to 8 weeks with a fibula injury, that is concerning. They are the 2-time champs, however, and with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, they always seem to find a way to win when they need it the most. So I will continue to believe in them and trust in them. I don't see them losing in week 3 either. And who might they be playing? Well, that's a great question and a wonderful segue. Let's move right on over to game slate here. All right, this one's going to be a little bit different. This week is somewhat abnormal. The week starts off normally on Thursday at 8:15 p.m., where the New England Patriots will be heading over to New York to play the Jets. You have the Sunday 1 p.m. slate, which is definitely back to a more manageable size, 7 games as opposed to last week's 10 games. You'll have the New York Giants playing the Cleveland Browns, the Green Bay Packers playing the Tennessee Titans, the Chicago Bears at Indianapolis Colts, Houston Texans at Minnesota Vikings, Philadelphia Eagles at New Orleans Saints, LA Chargers at Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Denver Broncos at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You've got a pair of kickoffs at 4:05 p.m., Carolina Panthers at Las Vegas Raiders, Miami Dolphins at Seattle Seahawks. You've got 3 4:25 p.m. games, and one of those is the game of the week on Fox, and that's going to be your Baltimore Ravens at Dallas Cowboys with, again, Tom Brady in the booth for that one. You also have San Francisco at LA Rams and the Detroit Lions Cardinals. Sunday Night Football, we see those number one ranked Chiefs are going to Atlanta to play the Falcons, so the Falcons get 2 national games in a row. And on Monday night, here's where it gets a little different this week, guys. We have 2 games on Monday night at 7:30 p.m. You have the Jacksonville Jaguars playing the Buffalo Bills. That's the Josh Allen Bowl. And you have the 8:15, more or less normal Monday night game on ESPN, which will be the Washington Commanders at Cincinnati Bengals. And which of these games are going to be in my top 5? Let's go ahead and find out for you. At number 5, we have Lions at Cardinals. Both teams are 1-1. Arizona's coming off their home demolition of the Rams, while Detroit's going on the road after their heartbreaking home loss to the Bucs. The winner of this one should be really feeling good about themselves when it's all said and done. At number 4, we have the Philadelphia Eagles at New Orleans Saints. Can the Eagles bounce back after their terrible Monday night loss at home? Will the secondary for the Eagles hold up against the red-hot offense of the Saints? Or will the Saints continue to beat down on inferior teams on their route to 3-0? At number 3, we have the Los Angeles Chargers at Pittsburgh Steelers. These are 2 2-0 teams, both with similar identities. They play tough, they run, they play good defense. For me, it's number 11 versus number 10. Doesn't get any closer than that. Number 2, we have the Houston Texans and Minnesota Vikings. Another 2-0 versus 2-0 matchup. Can the Vikings beat this week's number 2 team after beating last week's number 2 team? Maybe. How healthy will Justin Jefferson be? How does CJ Stroud and the Texans handle the loud and hostile environment that is US Bank Stadium? And they maintain their high level of play? That one will definitely be a fun watch. And my number 1 game of the week, just like America's Game of the Week on Fox, is Baltimore and Dallas. Is it possible the Ravens fall 0-3? Or will the Cowboys lose their 3rd consecutive home game after winning the previous 16? How's Tom Brady going to do in the booth? No, I'm just kidding. That last one, definitely just kidding. A lot of people are giving Tom Brady a lot of guff, but, to be honest, what do you expect? The guy's been playing football for so many years. He's in the booth. I thought he was a little robotic in his first game, but he's getting better as the games go on. And yeah, he's definitely a little bit of the draw, but this is going to be a damn good game. I think America's Game of the Week will be a close one. And I'm not sure. Who do you guys think will win? Let's segue then right over to my game picks. As you can see, I've got Baltimore. I'm leaning Baltimore on that one. I think they'll get their first win of the year. I just think they're too good to go 0-3. Right now, I also have the Texans. I think I'm pretty solid on the Texans, and I don't see that pick changing, nor the Saints pick changing, nor the Lions pick changing. Those are pretty much set in stone. Now, Pittsburgh Chargers game, that's going to be a tight one. It is in Pittsburgh, and as you can see, I'm leaning toward Pittsburgh in that one. And as always, you guys can see my picks and go up against me by joining my Pick'ems League in the description below. The season is still very young, and I'm actually not doing so hot this year. If there ever was a year where I could be got, this one might be the one. So don't hesitate to jump on in there. Like I said, the link is in the description below. The password is triggered. All that information is down below if you click on it. I'd love to see more people join those leagues. Last week, I went 2-3, which brings me overall to 5-5 in the year on my game picks on the podcast. We'll see how I fare this week. And if you want to take a look at how I fared across the rest of the games, I have that on this slide. So after going 12-4 last week, you can see I went 6-10 this week, and that is embarrassing. I'm going to just tell you right up front. I am embarrassed by that. I did not see these number of upsets happening, and with all the injuries that happened, this is going to be, I think, hopefully a week to bounce back, as I kind of think I have a better feel how the teams are going to go this week. Now, 14-18 versus the spread, that's always kind of hard. Right now, those percentiles not looking good at all. You can see in my dynasty and fantasy how I rolled this week. I ended up losing both my dynasty leagues. In fact, if you check out my new team name, I named my second team, the one I inherited, the Impatience. That one unfortunately has Tua on it. I would have never drafted him just simply because I don't typically like smaller quarterbacks, and I definitely feel for the guy. I hope he gets better, but that's definitely hurting that team. And in both my dynasty leagues, I drafted JJ McCarthy this year, and as everyone knows, he's out for the entire year after having his knee surgery. So definitely not looking good for me on that second dynasty team. Maybe I can pick back up in that first dynasty league. And the good news here, to end on a high note, is the Nate Takes Your Soul Family League team I have got the high score of the week. So I cleared $50 winning that one. So let's go. Let's celebrate the positives and move on to week 3. As always, I do want to thank you guys for watching. You all truly are the best, especially if you made it all the way through the podcast. Don't forget if you give me that like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. To my family and friends, especially you guys, you all are amazing people. I hope you all stay great out there. Let me know what you got going on in the comments below. Have a fantastic week 3. Peace.